You're in Jersey right now, right?
Yep. I have not left the Great Garden State, man. Maybe for I guess a quick tour up in Syracuse and then a half a season a season in Baltimore. three
Yeah,
hour radius.
yeah. Well,
It's been great.
I've obviously 7 seasons in NFL, known for the helmet catch. Uh, if you look at any list of greatest NFL moments or Super Bowl moments, if it's not in the top two or three, it's not a credible list. Uh, Definitely, I remember where I was sitting there watching it. But to kind of talk about like I guess your origin story. You were born in Livingston, New Jersey, and you grew up in was it Montclair?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Livingston is just you borrowed a hospital in Livingston, so yeah, it's like East Orange in my early years, East Orange, New Jersey. Little bit more of a tougher urban area, Essex County, and I was fortunate to move over to Montclair when I was about 10 years old. Still diverse. It was a little edgy, but definitely so much opportunity. Definitely shifted the narrative for me, especially with sports.
Yeah. What were some of your aspirations as a kid, or did you know it's football at a young age?
No, I mean, like we were just, it was a good time, I'm a 80s baby. So, and you grow up around that time. It's just outside, hide, go seek, enjoying the good life as a kid, getting dirty, changing school clothes. So, yeah, when I moved to Montclair, I was 10 years old, had a quick little cup of coffee in St. Thomas that was a tough little experience in the fifth grade. I came back to Montclair. Montclair was a really diverse, it's very much known as a well-to-do city, but it was like I said, it was so diverse as a black kid coming from East Orange. I didn't know that it was like this super well-to-do town. So,
Hmm.
but all the kids played sports. It was actually in 1990. I think they were ranked. The high school was ranked in the country. Had one of the most memorable, high school games. I think it's still the best high school game of all time. Montclair Randolph. So you kind of felt that in the air even as a kid. And then it was just, hey, it was just a social thing. Kids playing sports. Got signed up for football, basketball, and baseball in the sixth grade, and that was kind of where it started. And it was a social deal. Everybody was better than me, but I enjoyed it. I was athletic enough. I was athletic enough to just compete, figure it out. And honestly, I was, going through those young and dumb phases in middle school, a couple incidents legally. And I think it was like eighth grade. I was coming from court. And that was like one of those early rubber hits the road
Yeah.
moments for me as far as prioritizing athletics because I was just so tired of, I got really sad looking at my mother's face at the courthouse,
Mm.
looking at the stress that I was putting on her. So it was just definitely a young, gritty little kid figuring life out. And thank God football was an avenue, sports was an avenue to give my life some shape and discipline.
What would you say, looking back at that younger version of you, that you learned most, being that you're a parent now?
I think that change is just hard for people, right? And when I look at young kids, especially when they hit those puberty years, everybody's trying to find their way. You know, I,
100%.
I, they're just trying to find their way. And of course, we all have a different experience with our families, and we all have a different dynamic in relation to our communities and what that can look like. So, I think for me as a parent, it was like, man, change not only is it possible, but all we have to do is look outside of ourselves to someone that we value and it can really motivate us to change. When I looked at my mom and I knew that she cared for me and was doing her best, it was a massive motivator for me to, you know what, I still wanted to be cool. I still had a lot more bad decisions that I kind of fleshed out, but it
Mhm.
did change because I was on a trajectory to back arrests, and if I got one more encounter with the police, I would have been in Jamesburg and juvenile hall, and that was just some of it was stupid stuff, some of it was I want to be down, kind of situations. So that just shifted. Like, I'm gonna hang out with my other crew over here, focus a little bit more on ball, and that was a game changer. It was a game changer for me. I started getting good, and next thing sophomore year, you just see one little letter, one little Syracuse questionnaire,
Yeah.
and the possibility now becomes something that you can maybe fathom that keeps you on track.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, when was like that aha moment for you where you were like, "Oh wow, I am a little bit better than or more talented at this."
You know what? As early as I got that little prospectus mail, it wasn't even really real because I was never. Montclair just had such good teams and good, like, yeah, I'm playing good. I'm doing my thing on a freshman team, but I didn't play. I played a little bit of varsity as a sophomore, and it never felt like I had arrived.
Yeah.
And we had Division I players go every year for a public school. That was kind of like a big deal, especially And now the whole high school narrative's changed. So I knew I was part of a good tradition, but I was always looking up and trying to find that breakout way. We had on top of that a run heavy offense. So I mean, it always felt like I was good, but not necessarily shining on par with your contemporaries. And I was never, even getting recruited. My teammate, we got recruited together. He was an offensive lineman. He was the New Jersey State Player of the Year. So it always kept me humble and hungry.
Yeah.
And I will say that there were some seeds planted. I remember my sister when I was a little kid growing up in East Orange. She was like, man, you can get you one of those scholarships. So it's pretty neat that I'm a little kid, not even thinking that much about sports, but she planted a seed. So when that mail started to come, it motivated me even more to just hone in on the craft, enjoy the ride. And I think as much as I knew I was good, there was just so much talent. It was one of those towns that had so much talent around me that my gift and grace was my grind. It was just the grind, being committed. And once the mail and the scholarship started coming in, it was kind of real. So it was just maximizing that and taking it to the next level.
What made you commit to Syracuse? I'm always curious about people's recruitment processes.
Yeah, good question, man. I think they were the first offer. I think as a junior, I had like 5 or 7 offers. I remember Syracuse came in early, Boston College came in early, Rutgers came in early. Most of the Big East schools, maybe Maryland.
Rutgers
And
was up and coming at that time.
you know what? At that time, it was horrific. It was Terry Shea, so it was right before Shiano.
Before Rice and them.
So when I was getting recruited, it was right before Shiano got hired,
Mm.
and so it was just wasn't really an option just because things was just so bad. And Syracuse was on par with best schools in the country at the time with Donovan McNabb. I think they were back-to-back Big East champions. And, in my retro year, they actually won it again outright. So they were early on boarders. I think I took my visits to Virginia, Iowa. I had canceled visits. I got tired. I canceled visits to play defense at Nebraska, and Hal Mumme had this throw the ball everywhere offense at Kentucky. So I canceled those visits. It was really my mom. My mom was on a visit with me to Syracuse. She had this big old smile on her face, and it was obviously close enough for the family to get to.
Yeah.
And it just made a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, at Syracuse, your junior year is the one I'm kind of most curious about, because that's when the 9/11 attacks occurred.
Okay.
Where were you at when that happened?
Shine students, the student center was like, you're on campus, you're walking around, and it was kind of weird because you're clueless, and then you're just walking and you can see conversations happen. And I walk into the Shine Student Center, which is just a place you can sit down and relax. And of course, the television's on, and you're looking at the towers and smoke. And I guess you could say, from a selfish standpoint and not having that much awareness, as much as you know how big this is, I was fortunate to not have any relationships connected to the World Trade. And I'm a Jersey guy, so it's kind of like disconnect, but I'm connected. I'm like, this is massive, but thank God it didn't affect my world. The next thing you know, I'm talking to another guy, and they do know someone that they have family that works in the World Trade. So it's like, it's like, from an immature side of it, it's like, what's going on, but you have no clue. I think when it directly affects you at that age, and like I said, I'm 21 years old, you kind of get it, but you don't really understand it. This is one of the most shifting moments in U.S. history. So, I caught it. I caught a glimpse. It didn't hit the heart of my wheelhouse directly, but as you move forward, it shook up the world. It shook up relationships, shook up lives, shook up the nation. And like I said, it's one of those things where, as an adult now, back at it like, wow, this this is a shifting moment in our entire human experience, as Americans.
Yeah, I was much of the same. I was walking through a student center in college, and I looked up at the TV and saw people kind of huddled around, and I went and talked to one of my professors, and he's like, "The world's changed forever," and I didn't have the same perspective as him at the time. But yeah, I
Yeah,
was curious because you're pretty close to it. You were a lot closer than I was in
yeah,
South Carolina.
yeah. Syracuse is upstate New York, so it's like 3.5 hours, really like 4 hours from the city.
Yeah,
3.5, when you're blazing the highway from where I was in Jersey. So it's kind of like you're connected, but not really. It was
yeah.
like, yeah, that was probably the way we used to trick so much talent from Florida.
You're
I
gonna be
think
right by New York City.
yeah, and I think they used to think that New York couldn't be that big, but yeah, it's a good amount away from New York City. But like I said, it was a good experience nonetheless. It was definitely a wild time, and from a standpoint of awareness and just immaturity, yeah, it wasn't something that beat in my post. My sister is a Marine in the military. It didn't affect her direct job or world. So once we cleared that, I think she was actually stationed in Okinawa at the time. So once we kind of cleared that hurdle, it's kind of like, okay, let's just move on and how we adjust.
Yeah, for listeners out there that aren't aware of what happened or not don't remember, and I say it because I have students who come through who are like, "Oh, I was 2 or I was 3 when that happened," but the world
Yeah,
changed like a lot for at least the first couple of months. Patriotism was a all-time high. Sports got put on hold for a little bit, uh,
yeah,
so it was just a unique experience. And then the end of the year, I thought this was kind of interesting. Y'all beat Kansas State in the Insight Bowl
yeah.
around the same area as where the biggest moment of your career happened. I believe it happened at old Sun Devil Stadium, I think.
Sure. Yeah, Glendale. I never even put that together with the Insight.com Bowl. Yeah, it was definitely in Arizona. It was, yeah, and it was kind of it was probably our best season. We had a 10-win season. We
Hmm.
beat Tech that year. We should have probably been at the Gator Bowl, but I don't think our fans traveled as good as Virginia Tech's. But and yeah, great win. I remember it was fun for me because I didn't have any big catches or anything, but I rocked the punter. I think he dropped the punt, and I just dumped him. It was
Well,
fantastic.
you're a beast on special teams.
Yeah, that was my deal. I think I know I might still be tied. I'm not sure for block punts or block kicks, but there's some other guys. They had different opportunities. All mine were punts. I think the other guy would tie me. He might probably block some field goals. I didn't get that opportunity,
I
but
think you got what, 5?
I had either 6 or 7.
So
Should have been
okay.
7, but I'm not sure if they counted
Hmm.
that bowl game because of what it was. Maybe he dropped it. I don't know if they count it as a block punt, but it's all good. It was just little fun semantics as you get older. You're like, oh man, I'm a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it was just a good experience, man. I had to find a way on the field. I didn't go to Syracuse to become a special teams maven. I came, I guess as a competitor, you got to figure out how you're going to contribute, and that was really, it's an amazing story of not just self awareness, but like creativity. How you gonna contribute? What's most important to you. So in the team dynamic, it served me so well, even though it was self serving.
yeah. Find a way.
Find a way, man. You
Yeah.
know, um, that's what it's all about when you talk about contributing, meaning. At the end of the day, you play the game to compete and win, and you want to be a part of it. And I think it was something that I didn't know intuitively. It was kind of in me, but it's something that you get a chance to teach to so many different people throughout their life. Like might not come the way that you want it, but you can still contribute and find a way to be a part of something significant.
Yep. There's always a plan in place for you. Just gotta find it.
Absolutely.
And 2003 NFL draft, you went 6th round to the Giants. What was like the pre-draft like for you? What were you hearing? I'm sure it wasn't like now where Mel Kiper has everybody placed everywhere they need to go.
No, it might have been for some people who were maybe on the radar, but I was completely off the radar coming into my senior year. So, really my goal was just to get a shot. And so I knew, you start hearing after the season, you could get drafted. I knew I had the special teams thing going for me. My son was my greatest motivation. So for me, it was just like, hey man, run well. I didn't get invited to any excuse me, I didn't get invited to any all-star games. I didn't get invited to the combine. So all I had was my pro day. And so I just trained my fanny off. Our strength coach, Will Hicks, he's one of my biggest mentors and fans to this day. We got after it. I think I ran like 4.47 on the pro day. I ran faster than that, but it was, good enough. And just had a couple workouts. I mean, you don't really know. You went to Chicago, went to Miami. So it's cool to be in the mix. But they tell you can go as high as the fourth round as to not at all. And when you hear those things, it's weird because it's actually true. There's so many factors that go into it. And it's like, now that I end up getting drafted, my character grades were so poor. The reality is, maybe if my character wasn't so poor, I could have got drafted higher.
Yeah.
Because it just would have been a cleaner pick. So, it's just, I think, I never imagined that, just putting my head down and trusting with the best, running down on kickoffs, nailing people would have got me from off the radar to being drafted to the hometown team.
Yeah, which is crazy because you were talking about just trying to find a way to stay on the field, and by doing that and that persistence, it lands you in the NFL draft, which, I mean, you end up, like you said, hometown team, the Giants. Did you grow up a Giants fan?
I grew up hating the Giants. I grew up a 49ers fan.
So you grew up like Montana era?
Yeah, Montana era, you get it. Rathman, John Taylor, Rice, of course. So, yeah, it was Leonard Marshall, I think, and he nailed Joe Montana back in the day and broke his back or something like that. So I had this hatred for the Giants until they wrote that check. And then it was like, man, the Giants
I
all
love
right.
the Giants.
I love the Giants.
Giants. See, I'm a Tar Heel, so I grew up loving the Giants because of Lawrence Taylor.
There you go.
Still to this day, I think the most game-changing player ever to be dropped on a field.
I agree. I mean, like I wasn't like this big fan. When you see him, it was a totally different motor, totally different beast and mentality of playing the game. And like I said, it was the perfect guy to transcend the game at that time. I mean, they were dogs. They were just wild. It was wild.
He would dominate any era.
Yeah, I agree completely. Obviously, it's so much that he couldn't do or get away with, but it's irrelevant in relation to the skill set and temperament that he brought to the game. It's just it. You see those highlights, you're like, wow. And like I said, I've matured through this, and I kind of have this term that I've coined, got to maybe trademark, called civil savage. That's the mind. That's the kind of temperament that you have to be as an athlete today. You got to be a civil savage. You got to be a guerrilla in your mindset, but have a briefcase mentality and disposition in your care, your leadership. So it's a tough toggle. It's tough to handle that. And obviously, I try not to make those comparisons, but obviously, in relation to armed services, military, those dynamics exist. Those similar dynamics exist. We modeled a lot of our transition from armed services just because of the challenges of coming out of a well-positioned ecosystem and identity. So yeah, it's a different, but that era, it was no holds barred in the 80s, man. Like,
Oh yeah,
those stories were different. Those guys smoked cigarettes. It was like,
yep,
it was just different.
completely different time. And one thing that I really found fascinating about your story is something that a lot of our audience, either they have a family member, they know someone, or possibly they have been in a similar situation. But I believe I read right, it was at a young age, you had an alcohol addiction.
Oh yeah.
And that carried over into actually your professional career. If you don't mind talking to us about like that journey and how you found closure, or at least, everybody says like it's a constant battle, but
yeah. And I don't diminish that it's a constant battle. I'm fortunate to say that I have overcome. I think, and I have lots of relationships who fought the battle and they're in a different place. And my journey started, like I said, early, 14, 15 years old. Social, hospitable family, and alcohol was at the centerpiece of every event, if you want to call it that, every time that we hosted folks. And basically my mom her mindset, God rest her soul, she was like, I'd rather have my kids do foolish things in front of me than in the street.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like a worldly wisdom, but it, definitely endorsed, certain behavior, right? And so she went and bought our alcohol by the time I was sophomore, junior. She would buy our alcohol. And we just, every week, I was mostly obviously a social drinker, but every week, 40-ounce blunt to the head and a half a pint of Jack Daniels. And my house was the spot. So you go through Syracuse now is college binge atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And then blackouts start to enter into the equation. And I don't know what happened the night before. So these are the things that you're dealing with. You're not really comfortable when you wake up and you don't know what happened the night before, but you're young and dumb and you celebrate foolishness. And it's kind of like an ego thing where you just laugh it off. And inwardly, I had my concerns. I could be honest. I had my own concerns, but I was 100% a slave to it. So thank God it didn't deter. I would say that football being the first love, the fear of losing that was what always kind of brought me in. And I drank during the week every now and then, but it wasn't like a everyday thing. And I was on track. I wasn't a complete numbskull. I was still able to bear intelligence and not ruin my life in that way. But I was a slave to the functional, alcoholism. So my rookie year was it's kind of like you lose the boundaries of that campus life. You lose that set schedule, and I'm on my own. And everything began to unravel. So my character gets exposed. I'm successful on the field, but I was crumbling off of it. Had money intensified every vice in my life. And basically the marijuana that I was smoking along with alcohol, I ended up getting arrested after my rookie year on a marijuana possession. So that was the road to Damascus for me. And literally it was my faith that really just broke those shackles of addiction, because it was, as much as I could without being a complete numbskull, I drank, once or twice, maybe during the week and every weekend. And I drank to get drunk. I drank for the sole purpose of escaping from the pain that I didn't even really know existed.
How important is the support system? Because you got an amazing family. How important are those rocks you got around you?
Man, it's everything. It really is. And I think because I have so much compassion, my story was very powerful in relation to, I walk in, I have this moment of brokenness that leads me into an encounter with God. And next thing you know, the taste of alcohol is out my mouth. So I'm very careful about the consideration, because I know people who've overcome it and it wasn't that easy. I know people who have had to battle and wrestle with that. And I tell them it's worth it. So the support system is everything. My journey, along with the reality that, I think, even things like 12 steps, which is so proven and powerful in people's life, it's you have to have a power or a value system or construct that transcends your own ability, your own limitations. And I think that the pillar to that are the people in your life. So the shackles being broke loose for me was definitely profound in faith in Christ. But ultimately, it was my wife and my family who celebrated the overcoming. And I was kind of propelled into a new life that not just their love surrounded me, my transformation also inspired them. So it was a massive turnaround and shift in central relationships when I got I guess what you said, when I got born again at 24 years old.
Yeah, you mentioned being born again, breaking the shackles, and then going to do some amazing things. Pro Bowl. How was that first Pro Bowl?
It was amazing. Pro Bowl, All Pro. My third season, I felt like they were about 2 seasons short, because I came into the league like a madman on special teams. I was the All Pro. I was a special teams rookie of the year. But when your team's not successful, it's hard to get the accolades. So it was kind of like, in my mind, it was overdue, but still fulfilling. And I was just, now my life was stable. Now I could actually be the athlete that I desire to be. So those were moments of true validation. Eventually you get rewarded with the contract, and now I get a chance to live the right life. Now I don't have to deal with the hypocrisy of wanting to be an example that I'm not really in private. And it was really fulfilling through that vehicle. And of course, trying to be trying to find fulfillment in my role, even as a receiver, knowing that I could probably contribute a little bit more.
Yeah, and now that next part of the journey, which I'm really excited to talk about, was that '07 season. Y'all
Good
get
time.
into the playoffs, 10-6, second in the NFC East, behind the Cowboys, and then y'all get into the playoffs, number 5 seed, wild card round. You beat Tampa 24-14.
Yep.
Tampa has some good playoff teams in that
They
era
did.
too. So
It was Simeon Rice days, and they just had some good teams. And yeah, we had them on the first game on the road. Obviously, we were road warriors that playoff run, and it was just a special team. It's hard to put it any other way. There was so many naysayers, and sadly, including our former teammate Tiki Barber, and they had every. I guess you could say naturally they had every reason to. With him leaving, Strahan sat out the camp. Eli Manning looks like a dud. Tom, like Tom Coughlin, hot seat. So the narrative was there, but we gathered around it. Coughlin matured in his leadership, and honestly, it's the relationships. When you talk about a championship team, it's the relationships and their ability to bond beyond the workplace, and that's what
yeah,
began to happen. And we had a great mix of talented veterans to, just emerging rookies who came in and immediately found roles, and we got hot. We got hot, and it was great to be a part of
playoff Eli, goodness.
it. Well, those are two different quarterbacks right there.
Yes, people don't understand that when especially if they're not very very fluent with NFL football. I'm like, look, playoff Eli is a different beast. He was a kryptonite to Brady.
Yeah, well said. And it really was. Sadly, even when I was with the team in the front office and we made the playoffs in 2016, the last time they did, aside from this year, he was ready, and the younger players weren't. That was the
Yeah,
Odell Sterling Shepard boat visit, and they weren't ready. And Eli was on.
yeah.
Eli was on, and he's just a special guy in relation to his preparation, his ability to hone in. I'm not gonna, like the whole Hall of Fame. I just say, hey, eventually, right? Like, there's a lot of things to debate around his career, but something was special about him moving into the playoffs and seizing the moment and kind of riding the waves of a special team. And so, yeah, if you got him to the playoffs with the right team, you can cash them checks.
He, he's kind of like I taught college basketball with one of my good friends, and we're always saying that like Syracuse and Michigan State are like those two teams you never want to see in your bracket, regardless of how the regular season was. But
Yep.
Eli is kind of the same. He's I guess like the Syracuse of college basketball when it comes to that. But
Yeah, I can see that. There's some parallels there because, yeah, it's a different season. Playoffs a whole new season,
mm-hmm,
and not obviously he was specifically Tom Brady's kryptonite, but he was the right quarterback for good teams.
mm,
I'll be honest to say that if we didn't have he couldn't overcome a poor offensive line. He couldn't overcome a bad team. There's some elite quarterbacks that have the ability to transcend their team.
yeah.
And I can't say he was ever in that category, but I tell you what, he was a championship caliber quarterback that got the job done. He was fantastic for New York.
Biggest takeaway from your time with him that listeners may not know about?
Oh man, I think they're seeing it now on full display, man. The goof,
Oh
like
yeah,
I mean, he always flashed it, but yeah, he had that Seinfeld dry humor. That was his favorite show. I think and
it makes sense now. Okay,
so
yeah,
socially, yeah, just like so socially awkward.
yeah,
He didn't always necessarily connect with all of us the same way, but that's really who he was.
yeah,
So, I think it's great to just see him in his element. He earned so much respect, and he did it the right way.
yeah. Yeah, it is good to see them doing what they're doing now. But yeah, y'all go to the second round and the divisional round. What I thought was really interesting about the playoff run, you mentioned the Road Warriors, but then
Yep.
y'all had to overcome obstacles with Dallas, Green Bay, and New England that I think often gets overlooked because
Sure.
the first week of the season, Dallas beat y'all 45-35. Second
Oh,
week of the season, Green Bay beat y'all 35-13. So you've got to hear all these analysts leading up to these games like, Oh, Green Bay stomped them in week 2, but y'all go into Dallas, you win 21-17. And then Green Bay in Lambeau, which was Brett Favre's last game as a Packer. And that was a
Yep.
good game, that overtime game,
Was.
23-20. What do you remember about that run through the NFC?
Yeah, it was definitely, I think the theme at the end of the season after we won the championship, they coined it about resilience. And then we
Mm.
were. We matured through it. We matured through the season and we struck a chord as we endured the second half of the season, which wasn't as strong as the first. I think we were 6-2, and then we kind of hit a little glitch there. And like I said, got in the middle of that playoff run, but it was special because we were able to get those redemptive victories in the playoff run when everyone's against you. But like I said, we had such veteran talent and young emerging talent that wasn't given enough credit. Even the R.W. McCorders, the Sam Madisons of the world, these were guys who could play. These were just savvy, solid, dog, overlooked at that stage in their career type veterans. And even somebody like myself, I'm just in there. I knew my role, and they were guys who knew their role, but could also step in and transcend in relation to their ability. So getting those 2 wins back, and boy, that game in the Tundra, no one could ever forget that. I think we all walked away with some low level frostbite.
Including Tom Coughlin. I mean, I've
Purple
seen,
face, looked like
yeah.
Barney out there.
Oh, what was the mentality like leading up to that? Y'all played New England to end the season. It was a really tight game. Actually, I think they had to come back and beat y'all the last
Yeah,
week of the regular season. Did y'all
yeah.
have a sense of like, all right, we can actually beat these guys?
100%. I mean, we had them on the ropes, right? And
Yeah.
it's like we were excited to play that last game to take a crack at the best potentially in the world. They're going for undefeated. You're as a competitor, like not on me. So I think that was, it was great that our coach let us off the leash. We wanted to play. We played, and they beat us. That's how good they were. And you're not like shaking or stirred. Thank God we got a chance to wipe that off and get redemption in Tampa Bay the next week, and with the hopes of seeing them down the road. They're 1 game season, so you got to take them one at a time. And ultimately, that's what proved to be special with the run and getting that opportunity. It was, it's like blood. It's like blood in the water for a shark. And we knew that, not only did we take him to the ropes, that we had the ability to knock him out by putting pressure on Tom Brady. It wasn't the same kind of game as it was that last game of the season. It was that grudge, that grudge match. It was a defensive, and yeah, toward the fourth quarter, it just begins to pop, and we had a better build of a team in that second matchup to be able to go 4 quarters and knock them out in the 12th.
Yeah, I remember watching it, and it's crazy. First of all, this is the 15-year anniversary, which is crazy to think that's 15 years.
15 years, man.
That shows
It's
how
so
fast
wild.
life goes by when someone tells me the helmet catch was 15 years ago.
It's
But
just wild.
New England goes into it, and all the Patriots, now Kansas City Chiefs fans, will probably turn this off at this point. But this is where they were 18-0. They February 3rd, 2008. My favorite stadium, because I'm a Cardinals fan, University of Phoenix Stadium. Uh,
Yep.
it, the game felt different right off the bat. It was like, I think, the longest opening drive in Super Bowl history that the Giants had. It was 16 plays, 77 yards. I think it was 4 third down conversions. It was like a 10-minute drive that y'all
Yep.
had. Could y'all kind of sense it? Like, all right, this feels different.
You know, I will say this. I've always been a guy in the moment,
Yeah.
and you only can kind of gauge that when you come out of it. And it's like you don't even know that it's a 16 play drive. You're at the next play.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you get a feel, but that's obviously a good feeling. Even when you get over to the sideline and you look at what was happening, because it's talking about dictating tempo and control,
Yeah.
right? And that's a form of dominance. And so, kind of understanding that you're really good with it. But at the same time, I think we came away with 3 points, right? I can't remember.
I, I
I
thought y'all
think
got it. Yeah, y'all might have got a field goal from it.
we might have got a field goal from it. I feel like it was
Y'all
some
scored. I know that.
Yeah, we definitely scored. But yeah, it was one of those deals, man, where it's just like one play at a time. We just knew how potent they were. They really were a good team. Big respect, one of the best teams ever. But at the same time, this was our shot. So I think, by that time, your team has an identity, the run game, solid veterans with Plaxico
Yep.
and Amani, and ground and pound and dictate tempo and control. And it was great to see that in the first drive.
Yeah, and I think what goes overlooked is Eli got you with a 5-yard TD. Uh,
Yeah.
and after a scoreless third, and
Most forgotten touchdown in Super Bowl history.
yeah, I was like, no one talks about that, but yeah, you got a TD. What went through your mind when it's like, all right, I'm etched into record books? At that time, you're probably like, I got my TD in the Super
Bro,
Bowl. I'm
I'm
good.
ready to go home.
Yeah.
I think it was I think it was 10-3 at that point.
Yep.
And so I'm ready to go home. I'm like, we good. We 100%
Give me
good.
my
Like,
ball. Let me hold this
yeah,
forever.
give
Yeah.
my ball. We good. I'm carrying it. Eli comes, gives me a pat on the back while I'm riding to the sideline. I mean, our defense was playing so well. There was no reason to believe that couldn't have been it.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a dream. It was a dream, and it was also a fulfilling prophecy because the night before, someone actually tells me that there's going to be this big play. So I'm actually thinking that that's it.
That's it.
And I'm like, this is it, God. You did something amazing, and I'm grateful for you. And so there were so many layers for me as an individual, but of course as a team. So to score a touchdown, it was everything, not even thinking that there would be something greater to come.
And there certainly was, because 2.5 minutes left. Y'all are trailing 14-10. I still remember we had a Super Bowl party at our house and watching that game. And I did not want the Patriots to go undefeated. And I remember that catch. And I remember everybody was like, what the hell just happened? And talk us through it, because it's not just, I think another thing people take away from it wasn't just a spectacular catch, but you also have Rodney Harrison, who was a beast, pulling on you at the same time, which to me makes it, I mean, even that much more special. But take us through, like, the catch coming to you, you grab it, pulling it down, and then when they were going back reviewing everything.
Yeah, what I think makes this the most undisputed best play ever is because it was really two miracles in one play. You got, you could back then you could blow on Eli and he would fall down.
Oh, his
And
escape.
obviously his escape was one half of the miracle. And then you got me, the black guy, the anonymous black guy who can't jump. So I have like a 31-inch vertical coming out of college. And so, yeah, it's two miracles in one play. And it's like that Chariots Fire moment, right? It's like slow motion. You want to high point it. Everything's kind of textbook. You go deep. You got to come back when you run a deep route to give your quarterback a chance. And just as I find some green grass, it was kind of when Eli was able to, set up and see me. So, I go up a high point, and I could, just for a second, I knew mentally I had to prepare myself for that I wasn't going to be open long. Mm-hmm. So mentally, I'm kind of checking that box, like prepare for contact. So I go up, two hands on the ball, and immediately there it is. And since I had it, all I knew was I got it. And then it's just in your mind, you just feel like you're clinching. It's just like, I got it. You're holding on, clinching. I have no clue that the ball's on my helmet. And basically, I remember getting the second hand back on the ball, and I got it. I secured it. I lock it in, and Rodney's trying to do anything and everything to kind of dislodge the ball. So yeah, I knew I had the catch, and I remember Steve Smith coming up talking crap like, "Man, get off! He has some choice words in there, But yeah, I had my young scrapper coming in to get Rodney up off me, and it was just kind of like next play. You got to figure out if you're even in the game. And but it was definitely a special play. I had no clue what was going on literally until I got back to the hotel.
I was going to ask you, when did you actually see it for the first time?
Yeah, the whole post game, I'm giving Eli all the credit, and and he deserves so much. But I knew I made a great play. I knew it was the signature moment of my life and career. But no, I didn't know it was on my helmets, and no one even mentioned it initially. So I get back to the hotel. Of course, big time celebration. enjoying the family, and I finally go grab something to drink or eat, and I go, look at the TV, and I see a replay. And I'm like, holy crap.
That's my number.
And I was like, man, for the first time, I was really impressed. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I was me. So no, I didn't know it was on the helmet. And it's kind of hard because you still don't have a gauge for how big it was. It took me a couple of years to realize that this was like history.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, took me a few years to really realize that I'm probably going to be talking about this for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to talk about here is, your career. That was actually the last catch of your career. And
Well,
I saw you dedicated that catch to your mother.
yeah,
Passed away shortly after.
yeah. I think somebody might have written that in there, but I'll take it. There's no reason not to. She passed away literally, less than 2 months before the Super Bowl run.
I'm
So
sorry to
she was
hear
my
that.
biggest fan. Heart attack, and it was obviously it was tough. So I ended up missing 2 games burying my mom. Found out the night before the Washington game, but it was really to the glory of God in a sense that God had this whole thing written out in the cards for me. I have this interwoven story of faith that is very authentic, that obviously connects to the game, but also connects to the human experience. And I think that's what the catch really represents. It represents the ordinary person, God having a plan for them at whatever measure that something significant, meaningful, and extraordinary can be accomplished through him. And he takes those low things of the world, who's David Tyree, and sets me up on the greatest platform in sports, and gives me that opportunity. So it's kind of like, but in the midst of it, there was a lot of trials and disappointments. It was one of the most disappointing statistical seasons of my life, not just as a receiver, as a special teams player. I lose my mom. I missed 2 games early. It was the wilderness journey to receive a crown of glory, knowing that, wow, God, you had something far beyond my imagination in store. So yeah, I give the glory to God, but my mom was definitely a centerpiece because she was my biggest fan. She was my biggest advocate as a child. And I can, I miss watching the US Open, just real moments with my mom as a sports enthusiast. We watched tennis together. We watched World Series baseball together. And she, she was that mom that wanted to be the Chunky Campbell's mom, so so, having 7 kids and moving forward in life without her, and she didn't get a chance to see those twins that were born, just 2 weeks later. So it was tough. It was tough. So yeah, that's a real dedication in light of what God has done.
Oh, I'm sure she's looking down, smiling at all the amazing things you're doing here, because that catch, like you said, opened so many doors. And I mean, talk about all the things you're doing now with Catch Camp, with the podcast. I mean, you're all over the place. Especially your LinkedIn is busier than anybody else's I know right now.
You know what? I'm trying to, my biggest goal is to be faithful over what I've been entrusted. I got a beautiful family. That means I got to work hard. I got a big God. I got to honor him. And I think with the catch, for me, the catch was about stewarding it the right way, not just with my life, my integrity, representing my faith, not packaging it in a way where it's being tricked out, but being authentic, but being in service to God. So at this stage in my life, it's kind of morphed into entrepreneurship, being a business owner. We launched Clean Juice just because that was the first thing we had going while I was still in the front office with the Giants. And, launching that in the middle of a pandemic was tough, but we're still open and we're still surviving. And we kind of had then I was able to get into the media, some spaces where I've always wanted to be. We'll do some work with MSG and Channel 11. And now I host, my own podcast, Catch the Moment podcast. And now we're launching a catch camp to celebrate 15 years of the helmet catch in Arizona, where the catch happened. And it's basically a camp that's going to have football in the morning. Our tagline is feed the dream, paint the reality. And I think that's what sports is. It gives us so much motivation, so much foresight. It gives us the soft skills, the EQ space that we need to flourish as individuals and leaders. So yeah, we do football in the morning, and in the afternoons we do leadership development, and then careers in sports. And we want to introduce families, not just the athletes, families to the entire life cycle of what sports can provide, namely for me, football. So it's really a metaphor of my journey through sport. And at the end of the day, every single one of them can have a place of meaning that transcends a moment.
If anybody out there wants to find out all the awesome stuff you're doing now, where's the easiest place to find you?
Yeah, easiest place is the website, davidtyree85.com. My goal is just to continue to live life before God, be a point of intersection, a point of inspiration for anyone that I encounter, and not, like I said, not placing limitations on someone's success, their moment, but continue to grow. So yeah, that's the best place. I'm active on Instagram and LinkedIn, dtyree85 on Instagram, and folks can catch me on LinkedIn. But yeah, definitely looking to just grow the brand and provide value in whatever way to people who are looking for that hope, inspiration, motivation, and leadership, and those leadership values.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for taking time to be here. The Shadows Podcast Bowl 2. So this was a big deal. So I appreciate it. From your family is doing some awesome stuff. Excited to see that next chapter y'all got coming up as well. So I appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man. It's a good time. Good time. And wish you the best, brother. Keep winning.
Absolutely. Well, folks, that'll conclude this episode of the Shadows Podcast.